get slaughtered. Oh, homicide. If you fucking with me, oh, when I'm
Who want the smoke? Who want the smoke? Who want the who? Want the who? Want the smoke? Who want the smoke? Who want the smoke? Who want the who? Want the who? Want the smoke?
I hear shots coming on the low from hoes I'm hiding. This attention is so flattering cause they admiring. Don't know what's on their mind, but it should be with timing. Get the AARP or this AR, get the firing. Back, they don't want smoke with me. The diamonds is choking me. They pussy need puffery. These bitches is 0-3, and they in the lower league, all in my ovaries. The fur on my shoulder mink. Tell me what hoe will think. I get the money. I am the king of New York, and I rock and saw and weave. I run it, I relay the wig. They talking, I'm taking it in. I did not come here to make new friends. To burn the bridge and I'm making amends. They don't want none. I say it again. They don't want none. I pray for their sins.
Hot boxing in the whip. I don't even smoke, but we do want the smoke.
My bad. Everybody, welcome to the OZone. I am Oz, and this is Jenna. What's up, Jenna?
Not much. What's up? I was a little too hyped dancing in the backstage.
I was too. I had the birds flying and everything. Too many middle fingers. How's your week so far?
Oh man, it's only Tuesday. That's all right. I thought it was more later in the week. I lost track of my days.
It is on Tuesday. I actually woke up this morning thinking it was Thursday. I was like, I gotta go to work tonight. But it wasn't Thursday. It was Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, y'all.
But guess what I did do today, Jenna?
What did you do today, Oz?
I finally was able to talk to somebody at the Fort Wayne War Memorial Coliseum and finally get everything locked down and ready to rock and roll for Better 2022. You ever heard of that?
I mean, I recall. I think there was a Better in 2021, or there was supposed to be.
There was supposed
so you
to
tell him it's supposed to be. Oh, so you saying you got dates, Joe? You got dates?
Yeah, I got them dates though.
You got them dates though? Okay.
Yep, and I won't share them yet because I haven't got to talk to the entire team yet to let them know what's going on. But we do have everything locked down and ready to rock and roll. So we'll be working out the details here in the next week or so. Well, it's ASAP. That way we can start getting everything ready, and we're going to be adding, I think 2, possibly 3 more speakers to the lineup because I had a couple different ideas, And Biddy and I talked for quite a bit today. And let's just say there's going to be a TikTok element, a new TikTok element to Better.
That sounds fun. I should get a TikTok.
So we'll have more details on that. Later. But yeah, I'm excited now to have the dates and everything, because even when I left the Coliseum today, it was one of those things where it was like, I'm just being honest. Even I was like, is this shit ever going to fucking happen? Because
yeah,
I was having the worst time getting a hold of the people that were supposed to be putting my contract together. And then finally, for whatever reason, I walk in there today and they act like it's a breeze. And I'm like, you guys know I've been trying to do this for like fucking 4 months, right? But come to find out later, after I left later, is the lady that was handling the account hasn't worked there for 4 months. That's why I just kind of fell through the cracks. I mean, never mind that I had like a $2,000 deposit on the room and everything. Fuck that.
Yeah, that's not important.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But the reason I said all that, it was rejuvenating and re-exhilarating to finally have the paperwork and put ink to paper and say, okay, let's do the damn thing.
Nice.
So I'm ready to jump. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to hand it off to Jenna for tonight's video. A member of hashtag Tang Gang on his personal page is only a few subs away from 1,000. So when Jen and I are done here, we're going to do a little party. And you can go and have a drink. So we're gonna get Shane the Skeptic up over that 1K mark and party. As Biggie said, party and bullshit and party.
It's about freaking time. Good for you, Shane. Almost. That wasn't shade. Maybe a little
bit. Damn. Shane, for the record, I didn't say that shit. That was Jenna. Jenna said that shit. But yeah, shit. He may even hit the 1K before we even go live, but we'll still party and celebrate because that's what the fuck we do. But whether it's now or later on tonight, congrats, man. Congrats. I know it feels good. I remember when we hit 1K and I felt like a little kid on Christmas morning. So, so congratulations. Well, the video tonight, there's all kinds of dynamics to this video, and I won't say much more about it because I want Jenna to be able to do it. But and one episode probably isn't even enough, to be honest, because I rewatched it earlier. But we'll do the best we can. And maybe we do, Jenna, have to split it up because there's a lot.
There's a lot.
But you're in charge of this ship tonight.
No pressure. No, it's this video comes from Black Non-Believers YouTube channel. By all means, subscribe. Headed by the greatest, the GOAT, Mandisa Thomas. They since the beginning of this year, they started their own type of weekly live stream show called In the Cut, which runs on Saturday afternoons. I want to say 1 p.m. Central. But if I got the time wrong, I'm sorry. But or actually it's 1 p.m. Eastern. But with this particular episode, it aired not this past weekend, but the weekend before last, where an individual, they pronounced they them, named JeGaysus, and I forget his last name, but once we roll the thing, you'll see it. So to preface this, the show is about just, welcoming voices within the Black atheist community. And he's one of them, a professional, well-studied, well-versed individual. And, it may have been because I was in my fields. I don't know. I was that weekend for a number of reasons. But I think this particular live stream with this individual really highlighted the intricate aspects and issues and troubles that Black non-believers face, and the struggles of when we have to try and find ourselves within a whole new community, non-believers, to where we're trying to strive for more social issues, to be resolved, and stretch our voices more to where we're not prohibited from just being another minority within a minority, even though we are. And that goes to show we're not just purposely creating this little small group of ours within the atheist stratosphere, but it is what it is, because we are within this minority as minorities. So yeah, that was this little preface. A lot of me and Oz, I know we had a lot of good, healthy back and forth just after I watched it. And I was like, Oz, you got to watch this, please. And you watched it, you called me, and we were like, on it for like an hour. And, just recognizing that there is a lot that needs to be explained and retold and retalked about from different voices, to break down certain terms, to break down certain ideas. And that's needed, and that's perfectly fine, because not everyone can be just as effective communicator as they think they are, no matter how well educated or not. So I think I felt that I could do it some justice, maybe not all, to provide it some clarity, and to break it down for most that are not as keen on following Black non-believer channels, or not as keen on understanding the issues that go on with Black non-believers and how we try to integrate ourselves. So there you go. There's my speech.
No, well said. And yeah, I already want to start talking about what you and I talked about.
I know.
But I'll wait.
It's not until like the very end where we got to the real meat of our discussion too. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll wait till towards the end. But before we pull the video up, we do have someone that's their first time here at the Atheist Network group.
Oh, welcome. I know you. Hi.
And I don't. So my name is Oz. I'm an alcoholic.
That's true.
Wow. Hey. But welcome welcome to the Tang Gang, and this is what we do around here.
A lot of dancing tonight. A lot of dancing.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm not spicy, Shane. That's bitty. I'm sassy.
Oh. Favorite drink? Whiskey.
Stella Rosa wine. Even though you didn't ask, but
But you get to know anyway, so you're welcome. I will say though, I've recently, I don't know why I've had them before, but recently have started to absolutely fucking love just a classic old fashioned. I don't know why.
Wait, what's an old fashioned?
I don't know. It just gets me fucked up.
Okay.
It's got whiskey and stuff in it. Whiskey, sours, and then I don't remember.
Cool.
All right, and here's that video we were talking about.
Yeah.
You tell me what you think, Jenna. Should I go 1.5 speed so maybe we can get through?
At least 1.5. Let's start there.
I should, you know what, in the future, for most of the stuff that's even changing now, I'll just say like this: that's the colonized version of trying to talk about this good work, as you asked me earlier. So we can definitely unpack that stuff later.
Okay, so let's get into it for real then. Tell us in your words then. Tell us about your background, your religious upbringing, and how you came to your perspectives.
Well, gratefully, you know, I've had a wonderful opportunity to grow up in the, and yes, I said wonderful opportunity, to actually be brought up in the holiness tradition. Now, some would probably say that is not a wonderful opportunity, and I totally understand probably where you're coming from. I also had the opportunity to grow up in an era which was deeply dense with what we understood as early evangelical or neo-Pentecostalism. So it was very deeply conflated. But I had the opportunity to be around people who were elders, and so I always appreciate my holiness experience as it relates to old folk, if you will. I valued and always admired the importance of old folk and their experience. And many of those elders at the time that I was around, they informed a lot of the values I hold, particularly values around family, values around forgiveness, values around being true to yourself. And none of those things were necessarily things that you probably would hear across the pulpit or those podiums. But I did grow up like that. And unfortunately, many of those old mothers passed away, and old fathers of the meeting house passed away. And when that generation of elders had passed, I found myself, launched into a lot of the neo-Pentecostal early prosperity gospel conversations. And it was a whole different experience. Nobody was smelling like chicken church grease in the back. No one was smelling like collard greens from a can. Nobody was actually cooking proper mac and cheese. And so you can only imagine the experience to being launched into a whole new trajectory of what most people were considering what was Black religious tradition, as the Christian tradition was with regards to the Christian tradition. I myself maintained that relationship for quite some time. I enjoyed it, and I did not realize also the harm that it was doing to me because I was really young. But I always admired the importance of our community. I loved seeing Black people together. I loved seeing people from vast educational backgrounds, and I loved experiencing different people, not only from the framework of just vocation but profession. They were doctors in churches. But by the time I got really involved in this kind of prosperity, people were really coming together in these spaces as like networking. And so it didn't even, like, I was able to decipher the networking between religious community. And so I was realizing that people were going to church just to find somebody to hook up with. Let's just be real. That's how it was. There were a lot of secular moments in these spaces. And then I, of course, went on to school, moved to New York, started going to art school, studied to be an artist, continued that work, was a teacher for about 13 years. And I really wasn't involved in church. I kind of had an off-on relationship with it by the time I went to school, especially artists. I mean, artists, we just, we hang in the middle ground, if you will. And I ended up going to seminary much later on and studied at Union Theological Seminary, where I had the opportunity to engage in interreligious engagement. And my whole entire experience studying Black liberation theology shifted my perspective on what was religion to do, what was faith, what did faith require for folk to do, what did faith not do, and how important it was for, especially a queer person like myself and a queer Black person, how am I to engage and survive and exist in these spaces.
One thing that I would have loved to ask in this interview, or one with those individuals, in really any I would say anybody in a minority group, but specifically in Black America, where it is, for years it was assumed that white man smart, Black man dumb, right? And I even remember in the NFL that it was thought that a black man couldn't be a quarterback because he wasn't smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the playbook, or whatever it was. It's fucking ignorance, right?
Right.
And I wonder, or I'd love to ask, because I do wonder, where they find themselves as far as the internal dialogue that like a person like this has that is like uber fucking smart, right? Uber smart. So there is that high level of intelligence, and then it's and you and I kind of no, not kind of, you and I talked about this, where it is absolutely amazing to listen to them articulate themselves the way they do.
Yeah.
It is profound, right?
It is.
But then
Yeah.
but then there's me, and I'm not that smart. I'm dumb compared to this, right? And I'm going to ask them to dumb this down for me, because I don't get it. It has nothing to do with them. It's so now I feel like I'm even potentially, I don't know, putting them in the damned if you do, damned if you don't category. It's like, oh, so now the white dude wants me to dumb it down. Well, I'm not, it's I'm not asking you to do it to make you dumb. I'm asking you to do it because I'm dumb, and,
Yeah.
and I think that's a weird, I don't know if the word dichotomy is the right reference there, but it's something that even in that, like, I want to make sure that I'm communicating properly, because I'm not asking you to do that to discredit yourself and your achievements. I'm asking you to do it because I don't know, because I'm dumb.
And that should be, it should be perfectly fine, and you should feel safe to do so. And unfortunately, for anyone that has a higher level education and is well versed and articulate as they are, it almost seems like when you approach them with that question, they almost take offense, and that's unfortunate. And so, they speak to a demographic that is not only obviously their drive and demographic is for Black non-believers and also queer Black non-believers. So, but they still add the adage to that is those that are well versed and educated and understand his articulation well enough to understand their articulation well enough to grasp what they're trying to say or conveying. And sometimes it takes a bit more of a discernment or a careful ear to really hone in what they're trying to say to their audience. And, obviously this is not much of what JeGaysus is saying. They're just, conveying their history and background and things like that, and how they came up to where they are now. But as we kind of go more into the video, some of the terms they use, which are quite interesting, I tried to discern as much as I could to kind of break that down for you. And hopefully I can do the same now. Even for me, like you said, I had to rewatch it quite a few times still. But, there shouldn't be a real reason for anyone to be afraid if they genuinely want to ask that question. Because even, for me, I feel the same way in certain things, especially when it comes to philosophy or things I'm not as well studied on.
Yeah, that's just my my simple takeaway just from that, not just on this interview, but a multitude of those that I've seen, that in my attempt to be respectful, but still I want to ask questions and learn, but it
Right.
not, for the one I'm asking the question to, for it to feel like a a backhanded slap or passive aggressive jab, or anything like that. So
I developed a great amount of religious literacy, theological literacy, and had the wonderful opportunity to study with great thinkers like Dr. Cornel West, like I said, James Cone, and so many others. And I had to sit with the fact that actually I didn't believe in the God that I understood at all. And that was very hard. It was challenging. I'd also realized that the damage that was being done just through, some of the religious toxicity that was happening. I had to sit back at the personal point of how it had affected my family and truncated their ability to expand outside of their own comfort zone. And I took a year off after seminary. After I graduated from seminary, I didn't even bother with religious institutions. I stayed to myself until later on I had found a early non-religious movement called ethical culture, which is congregational humanism or ethical humanism, as some of you may know, and started working for them and positioning myself as actually their first Black clergy leader within the movement of ethical culture. So here I am, long story short, but it's there in a nutshell, as best as I could put it.
Okay. And at what point in your life was this? How long ago was this?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been with ethical culture now for about 7 years. I started at Union in seminary. I went to seminary in 2013 to 2015. And so, and prior to all of that, I had been back and forth to New York, Baltimore, Virginia, DC, and just traveling up the mid-Atlantic after school. So a lot of that travel and a lot of my experience was just informing a lot of the need to have a different relationship with how I understood myself in the world, as well as also being better relationship and right relationship. It was after a while, I just got to a place where it wasn't about right beliefs, but it was about right action.
Right. It's very interesting though, because do you consider yourself, because a lot of when I'm looking over like your work, a lot of it is what some people might call traditional. It is community. It is humanistic. It's about tradition, but you're also very much alternative. You're not, you're different. How do you view yourself in that? Where do you see yourself on the spectrum of like traditional versus like this new like 2022?
I know it's funny, there is something very powerful about that earlier as you were describing in my bio, the importance of homiletics. And homiletics is just a fancy term for preaching. I love preaching, but I don't believe it's just the idea of preaching that kind of in the traditional sense. It's really about it's a poetic of the flesh. It's a poetic of the humanity. Preaching does something very unique, and I love it as a performance. I love it as a performative practice, and I love it as it relates to. I mean, I'll be honest. I am more impacted when I hear sometimes people of color speak than when my white counterparts speak. And it is because of the cadence. Dr. West talks about it in Prophetic Fire that preaching somehow offers a cadence like jazz. And so there's a jazz to it. There's a jazz element to speaking, but that's also the poet. And then we look at people like Audre Lorde and, we see that poetic work happening, right? Where she says, our founding fathers, gave us, I think, therefore I am, but the mother, the poet, whispers and says, I feel, therefore I am free, right? It's there that I think even the poetics of the flesh is rooted in freedom. And so preaching offers us that opportunity, not by just the things we say. Black bodies have always been preaching bodies for years because we cause problems when we say things. We cause problems when we show up. And not problems because we are seeking trouble, problems because no one envisioned us in the spaces that we are currently in. And they never envisioned us in spaces that have always been occupied by, right, white, sterile mindsets, right? And so this is important. This is important work. So I'm glad I never left the art form and the performativity of it. What I do appreciate though is that I've been able to marry it, if you will, in a very different setting. Most people can talk a good game using God. If God doesn't need to be in the equation, then God doesn't need to be in the equation. If faith doesn't need to be in the equation, it doesn't need to be in the equation. I leave that for those who need to come to their own reconciliation about their humanity and how they operate with their own experience of what is struggle and what is success. I determine that. That's not deemed on somebody else's social capitalistic view or social standing or economic position. It's determined by what I speak out of my mouth about who I am in the world. And I think for years, definitely people of color and queer folk have been so denigrated by science, by society, never being able to actually own and articulate their own ethics and definitions regarding their own humanity, and have been used as research projects instead of us being the me-search that we need to do, that we never get to the collective of a we-search.
Real quick before he gets to that, I want to get any thoughts that you have, and then I did wanted to raise a point where he was talking about with preaching, but I wanted to stop there first because he's getting ready to say some really cool shit here.
Yeah. When they're discussing about preaching, basically, yes, they used to be a believer. They transitioned out of that. So the notion is that, yeah, Thank you, Shane. That was well said. The notion is the attitude of, you know, how we see preachers and pastors. We've both, you know, gone to church and see that for ourselves. So there's a display of charisma. There's this display of how you enunciate certain words and how you make gestures and things like that. So basically, they're touching on taking that aspect of their previous faith and utilizing it in their non-belief skeptic culture or society or association that they're with when speaking. And, you know, only if you share the same skin do you kind of feel and know what that means, especially if you are a person that was was a believer before and has come out of faith after that. You're so honed and tuned into Black church and Black church vibes and preaching and old mothers falling over, fanning each other, and, you know, all that good stuff. The praise and the gospel and the feeling and all that stuff all wrapped up, and you draw on that. It's easy to draw on those things, and that's why I struggled for quite a long time, because those things are so intoxicating and easy to just lean on, and it just makes you feel good and all that stuff, or it makes you cry because you're just in the moment. But taking that aspect and speaking to your Black skeptics and speaking to them in a way that they can really hear and hone in on the words that you're speaking on in order to create action. So they're just basically trying to utilize what they used to know in their past, and you place that in the Black skeptic community in order to create action. And they kind of speak more on that action, and use a lovely terminology that I love that they use with that. So I agree. The cadence and the poetry of it all is wonderful. It captures you, but also within those words, they have to be true. They have to be, obviously with religion, that doesn't offer that. But at least within like the skeptic community, at least with what they're striving for within the organization they're a part of, I think it's effective enough to create more action for those to be more outspoken, to do more community work, to practice more in social issues and provide work for that too. So
Agreed. And you know, the influence and the impact that a great speaker can have is very, very underestimated by most people, because they don't even understand that there's probably somebody in their life that they're impacted by because they're a great speaker, maybe, and they may not be a great human being. You know,
right.
You know, to use examples just come to the top of mind. Oh, and I love that Electro Live brought this up, and he's debuting his DJ show tomorrow night. Go check him out. I'm going to give us, and some people may say, I can't believe on this stream, Oz, that you would even say this, but I want to use this as an example of how, when we talk about powerful speaking and cadence and rhythm and what it can do to the emotion, what it can do to the person, and how powerful it is really, it's startling when you really start to break it down. So if let's say we could just hit the like no video, and we're just going to base it on first of all, forget the content for a second, but just the cadence, the rhythm, the pattern, the passion, and the voice inflections, and the ability to know when to hit and when not to hit, you know, when it comes to lifting volume and voice. There's two very, very different sides of I guess what we call for this conversation, good and evil, right? And if we take Martin Luther King Jr. and, just keep it at the speaking pattern right now, and not the content first, and just his ability to know exactly when to hit, exactly when to raise volume or have voice inflection or inject passion, or even the times where he would get quieter to bring in. All of those are, first of all, a sign of just a good speaker, right? A good communicator. But then you take it and you put the purpose behind it. Now you inject the content, and what he's talking about now. Now it is even more influential, right? Because it's like, oh, I want to be a part of this, right? And based on Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches, there was no social media back then. There was no internet back then. And I can't remember the number now, but how many thousands of people showed up in Washington just based on him communicating a vision and a purpose and a mission, and why he was, and why all of us should be behind this thing, this movement, right? That's powerful.
It is.
Again, that's minus any social media or anything, right? He did that with his voice. And then you look at the other side, which is very, very evil and disgusting, but it shows how much it can negatively impact when used by the wrong people. So if we do the same exercise and we take away content and we just examine cadence, rhythm, pattern, passion, inflection, volume, up and down, knowing when to and when not to, if you go and listen to, if you can stomach it for 2 minutes, and you listen to Adolf Hitler, he did the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
He did the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And then now you inject the content and it's disgusting, right? It's disgusting. But people bought it. Why? Because he sold it.
Right.
He sold it. And the reason I say that, and Scott, thank you, Sales 101, appeal to emotion.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And that's what it is. And unfortunately, it can be used for very, very great and awesome and fucking amazing things. And unfortunately, there's these sick motherfuckers that use it to manipulate other people for really disgusting purposes and atrocious purposes. And that's where it is one of those things, Jenna, that you were alluding to, that if we're going to use these things, like let's use them, but like you said, let's make sure we're injecting truth.
Yes.
Let's make sure that we're accurate in what we're communicating, what we're saying, and we're not being biased. We're not,
right.
To the best of our ability. We're human, right? But to the best of our ability, not being biased and not trying to sway somebody to believe it just because we believe it.
Right.
Yeah, that I just want to say it, because when he was sharing that, I do. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer in the power of public speaking, and when as soon as he started talking about cadence and rhythm and all that, he's like, beat that drum, dude. Beat that drum.
Yeah.
More people need to understand. I mean, that's how the fuck Donald Trump got elected. That's how the fuck he got elected.
Right. Right.
The only thing that man knows how to do is fucking talk to people.
Yeah, it's how you convey yourself and how persuasive you can be through the charisma, through the cadence, through your speech and articulation, how fast or how slow you talk, how much you place emphasis on certain words, or where you pause in certain sentences. And JeGaysus does that effectively. If you put it at normal speed, they do speak rather fast, but they do emphasize and pause in certain instances to where it captures the words and the best way. And that's through their practice, that's through their education, that's through them going through seminary like they had spoke about and everything else before leaving faith. And so now they realize how effective that is. And for me, what I got from it is that now they can utilize that into conveying more truths and having the Black skeptic community be more actionable instead of, well, I mean, they're going to allude to this more in the video, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and he's about to say some cool shit here, so we'll keep it going.
That is where it's tough, because humanism would argue that we need to have, yes, the logic and the rationale and the reason and the research. I agree with all of that, but we also got to do the me search. That's how this organization was started. There's some me search work with people like Mendisa saying, I want to have a community that's doing the we search. And collectively, how do we do it? How do we understand ourselves to do this work in this movement? How do we actually help each other, restore each other, rejuvenate each other, regenerate each other? And rather, regardless of our religious differences, regardless of what we believe and do not believe, how do we show up as a Black collective that's willing to be, if anything, in solidarity with each other's right to believe and know who we are in this society that we live in, that was not made up for us in the first place? Right.
I like that. I love that term, me search.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Yeah. It's a real thing. I think we're expected to always be so objective that we can no longer do the introspective work on ourselves. It's a true thing.
Yeah, definitely. So you coined the hashtag and phrase decolonize humanism with a growing
the me search, so we can do the we search. He had me right there. They had me right there. I was like, I apologize. I'm they them pronouns, motherfucker. I apologize. Yeah. I love it when they say that. I love it.
Yeah, and yeah, good. If you want to, Jen, and yeah, when we're watching this, by all means, tell me when to shut the fuck up. But when you like, what are you thinking when you hear we search, me search? You know,
yeah.
What are you thinking? What do you feel?
So when I heard that, doing the me search in order to effectively be a part and do the we search that, you know, these groups like Black Nonbelievers, Black Atheists of LA, all these other organizations, the me search entails you looking in, like he pretty much said at the end, looking introspectively to yourself, not allowing yourself to be a part of a society to where it's built up against you. For a long time, society has been built up against Black people or other marginalized groups as a whole. You know, the dominant group is male, white, you know, everything else. So and also within that, interestingly enough, because, and I've spoken on this quite a bit before, where when you're Black and find yourself falling out of faith, you find yourself falling out of the culture. You find yourself falling out of you actually being Black, because it's so much tied together within our history, and for many reasons that I've spoken about a lot. And so I think gathering from what they said as far as finding the me search and removing yourself from the overall society and how they see you, also removing yourself from within the actual Black community that are still believers, because they now see you differently. They now see you as, you're not us. You don't believe in God. You don't have Christ as your Lord and Savior and first in your life. You're not Black. You're not a part of us. Why should we even trust you? Why should we even talk to you? That's it. So when you're met with that, and then obviously that does some harm to you. It does some harm to your character. It does some harm to, you know, what the fuck am I? Where do I go? That's where their me search comes in. For me, that's what I felt. I felt, and I can honestly say, and just thinking about that and revisiting this video, my me search came when almost not too long after I deconverted and had to figure out, you know, if I really was the only one that was a Black non-believer, if, you know, I started to feel this kind of shake in my identity. Like, what does it mean to be Black? Like, is it just more than my skin color? Am I supposed to be a representative or something? Am I supposed to be more of the stereotype or less of the stereotype? Am I supposed to be this? And that's where I was wrong. I'm not supposed to be anything. I'm supposed to be me. And me is a Black individual. Thank you, Electric Live. I was just going to get that. Black people are not a monolith. I was just going to say that too. You hit me right on the head, bro. I love it. Black people are not a monolith. We don't associate ourselves to one particular category. We're not this, and this. We are so diverse and so different. And so doing that me search, finding that out for yourself takes some time, especially coming out of faith. And it took some time for me to where I had to revisit it myself as an adult, revisit my identity, revisit how I saw myself and how people would see me. And if I'm really not any different from how I was as a believer and as I was now, is my character or personality going to change? Is my outlook on life going to change? My outlook on life did change. It's a, it's a lot. It's a lot there. It's a lot of questioning and identifying those aspects of yourself in order to be comfortable. It's like, okay, I've done my me search. I know who I am. This is who the fuck I am. And this is what the fuck I want to do. Now I go forth and practice what the fuck I'm preaching or, what I'm thinking. And that's where the we search comes in. You find the bigger whole communities like Black non-believers, Black skeptics, all that. Communities like TANG, communities like what all other platforms have that they, welcome people to have discussions and stream and all that stuff and talk. Now you have the drive to be more proactive. And not everyone can, and not everyone should, and not everyone has the comfortability and the availability or the ability in general to do so. I guess at some crossroad of mine in the last 3.5 years maybe, I found where my area was as far as where, if I wanted to be more visible and outspoken, or just be more in the shadows and not, put myself at risk, put myself out there to do some form of activism. And now I am, in a sense. But yeah, that's what I felt as far as what the me search meant for me and where I am as far as we search. I love those terms.
Yeah, they're great. On a separate episode, I would love to talk about them in several different contexts, but I want to make sure for this we keep it here, because I think it's very, very much applicable to to several things, but it serves a huge purpose right here. And as I hear them talk, and I'm hearing you speak, and when you sent me this video, like we shared earlier, you and I spoke about this. The one thing I'm wondering to myself right now as I'm listening to you, Jenna, I know I grew up in and around Black culture, just being usually either one of maybe two or three white dudes, right? Mm-hmm. So I was always still just the white dude, and there were things that I could observe and understand, but there's other things, because I'm just always going to be the white dude, I'm never going to understand. But the one thing I do get is how entrenched Christianity is into Black culture, or Black culture into Christianity, or both, right? And with that said comes the lack of understanding of and I mostly blame religion for this, the lack of understanding the importance of therapy and medicine and things like that, with whether it's mental health or whatever, along those lines. What what part do you think that plays into this entire equation? What are your thoughts on that?
As far as the tie between religion and Black community, just to clarify your question.
Say it again.
As far as, are you asking what I identify as where the ties between religion and the Black community lie, and my thoughts on it?
Well, sorry. So going back to, yeah, I didn't tie that back very well. Going back to him. Sorry, they saying, because it has to start with me search before we search. It has to start with me search. Dude, can any of us, but especially in the Black community, that Christianity is like, as soon as you're born, you're essentially a Christian. You know, and that just is what it is. What I guess what can be done, you know, is that an issue? Do you see that as an issue, that therapy and medicine and all that is frowned upon, mainly because of Christianity? And what can be done to help move that forward, or move that in the right direction, where people where that is normalized, and yeah, people in the Black community that are questioning, or even if they stay in Christianity, can feel more comfortable with knowing that, okay, it's okay to go to a therapist, it's okay to seek medicine for a mental illness, because I know that's highly frowned upon.
Yeah. No, I understand. And and this, as you know, because I've told you these instances personally, that this kind of hits close to home. Even with what I shared on our show a couple weeks back, it hits close home for me personally, but only just recently, other, side comments within my family have happened. And then, that heavily plays into the ties of, it's definitely mental health, because especially within Black church, your counselor, your provider, the person you lean on and seek is Jesus Christ, first of all. And then, to have that more intimate one-on-one, if needed, is your pastor, your preacher. Or before that, it would probably be like a designated counselor, or at least with my church, they have like designated counselors that, if you're just joining the church and want to be a member, then you have to see a counselor, and then you have to go through all this new membership class bullshit. And but if you come down to the altar wanting to have prayer or laid hands on you, or if you have a testimony, and then they give you a counselor, and then they walk off somewhere. So that comes, and then the pastor and things like that. But as far as beyond that, as far as beyond outside the church doors, no. Because if God is not enough, then nothing else is going to be enough. Why would you attach yourself to anything worldly? You can't. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to, not just because you're physically not allowed. You're not allowed to because, Black people are supposed to keep strong in their faith. They're supposed to be like the most diehard, strong Christian people, especially Black women. Now, that's the hardest. Black women that are believers are one of the highest populated in the US. And we're geared and trained to be virtuous women, to be, as little girls, little women, and adapt to church life and be leaders, in a sense, by guiding the home, guiding organizations, guiding things like that, but not really having that type of leadership status. But that's beyond the little point. But with mental health, especially, it's I don't know what can be done to shake away the mentality of what Black church says about it. Just as I don't know how to shake away the mentality Black church has against homosexuality and gay marriage. Because that's pretty damn bad too. But I know that, you know, without God, there is nothing else. And, you know, if you're not strong in your faith and you're not praying hard enough, then you're a weak person. And not my words, but this is what has been said to me. You know, prayer should always give you the strength to get over your issues, get over your sadness, and placing your hope in God, and that's it. That's the cure. That's what you should be leaning on. Anything outside of that, then you're not strong enough in your faith. Yeah. So I don't know where you can shake up that, where that can change. I honestly don't. I've questioned that and thought of that for years. And the more I've seen and heard from not only my church family, but my own family, it gets more and more disturbing.
I appreciate well, very, very well said. Yeah, the only thing I'm going to follow up on, and it's not anything you said. You dropped all the bombs that needed to be. RAO had said something about Black Americans have way more reason to have lack and trust for medicine. Have you heard of Tuskegee?
Oh yeah.
Yes, and we are not going to discredit that or act like that's not a thing, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the stigma around mental health with Black church culture and Black culture in general. Like even my heart breaks now that it wasn't until like 4 years ago that I finally went and was like, fuck all this nonsense. I'm going to get a therapist and I'm going to get on medicine and I'm going to do all this because I grew up with and around that mindset and that mentality where it's no, fuck that shit. You're weak. You're weak. And pardon my language, pardon my French, my reference in this, but this is what we said to ourselves and said to each other. Oh, you're going to use a bitch, bro. Use a bitch. You gotta go talk to somebody about your feelings. You gotta tell somebody about your feelings. Use a bitch, bro. Like that was and is still with most of my friends that I grew up with, still the mindset. And it breaks my heart now because I know what it's done for me. I know what going to a therapist and being treated and medicated, and diagnosed, like I know what it's done. And that's why I asked the question, because I want that for everybody that has any type of mental illness or a diagnosis. I want them to be happy. I don't care who they are. I want them to be happy in any way that we can help more people realize that it is a benefit.
It really is.
It's a benefit. You're not weak. It actually takes more strength to go do that.
Yeah. And, I love what DeAndre Black said. They make you feel like something's wrong with you when you leave the faith, using fear and guilt, shame to get you back. Yep, absolutely. And that's exactly where I am. That's where my fear lies. That's why I'm still closeted, because I know what that guilt and what that shame looks like. I can't provide absolute hard evidence of how and in what way, shape, or form my family will react, but I certainly don't feel safe. I don't. And with the state of my own mental health and protecting myself and my mental health and just trying to get through the fucking day, and not having that as a cloud over me, or having my family force me to be a believer again. I'm trying to save myself from that as long as possible. And that could be tough. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and you tell me what you would like to do here. We're exactly almost halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're getting ready to get into the part that you and I had a really, really good discussion about, and I don't want to rush it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hurry it. So you tell me, we can either push through, or we can schedule this for the same time next week and do the last half. That way we can take our time with it. But you tell me, it's your call.
That sounds too good. I do want to say the last half. I do, actually, because there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to say as far as how we can. I'll say this because I don't want to spoil too much of it. And by all means, go to the Black Non-Believers channel and watch this for yourself, so you'll get a sense of what me and Oz will be kind of talking about the next time. Because the second half, it does seem it's vital to do it a bit more justice than just walking it through in like maybe 10-minute conversation. Because, you know, when we use actionable words, or we use words that to other people may feel like a sting, or may feel like, oh, you don't want me around, or may feel like, you know, you're not welcome or wanted. There are reasons behind it, and there are just better ways to effectively communicate that when one person cannot. I mean, JeGaysus, they are well educated and they articulate themselves extremely well. And even when they answered this last question, even with the speeded up portion, if you slow it down to normal speed, you can see how slowly they speak and actively think about what they're saying, because they're not, for one, just very cautious. And two, they mention it themselves that they've been sitting on this particular question for quite some time.
Yep.
And they have the fear of misguiding others, and they don't want to convey that in the wrong way. So by all means, that definitely deserves a lot more time. Definitely.
Yeah, and when we do the second part next week, Jenna, we will we can do there's this little portion right here we can still do sped up, but when it gets to we start inching towards that part, we'll go to regular speed. That way everyone can see and hear and understand the thought that's going, because you're 100% right, and I don't want to do Exodus any disservice by it coming off as if they're not putting the thought and the work into answering it, because it is a very intriguing answer to the question, and I don't want to tip off the conversation we had, and as intriguing as it is, and as impactful as it is, I still had a hang up. I still had a hang that you and I had to talk through, you know, and like, okay, help me.
And that's okay. It was good. I was like, that was exciting for me, because I mean, like, I'm going to try and do this some justice. So this is just me. So, you know, obviously I presented this to you, so obviously you can ask me this, but like, I can try my best to articulate or, you know, translate it as best as possible so that you don't feel offended, because that's it. It was good.
You're good. And that's the whole point in doing what we do, though, is showing that we can have these conversations, and we should be able to ask if it's from, it's, you know, coming from a genuine place of wanting to, and not be ignorant, not, because you, like I told that one son of a bitch named Isaiah, you only get to play the ignorant card once. You only get to play that card one time, and after that, you're just an idiot. You're a bigot, right? So I don't even want to have to play it once. I just want to ask the questions, so I don't even have to play the card.
Right.
I'd rather ask the questions and find out and know, and that's why I remember I called you. I was like, okay, all this is fucking great, but I need to ask this. Yeah, it's I think it's, yeah. I don't think I know I know it's important to be able to have those conversations. So well, Jenna, I appreciate this, and I appreciate how you and I can talk about these things, and how patient you are with my slow brain sometimes, and trying to gather this this information. But before we do close this out, is for the first half of this, is there anything that you would like to say or to add before we go?
I hope people in the chat found it. I was, and I kind of said this to Oz initially when I watched it, and I showed it to him a couple weeks back, that I hope it's good. It's different from what we commonly see and what we commonly talk about, which is okay, because it needs to be talked about, and it's not talked about enough. And again, when I did a couple of videos for Pasta Mike on his Normalizing Atheism channel, where I had interviewed Bar, and then I did a separate small video discussing Black atheism. And there was an interesting comment amongst the many comments on that video. I haven't looked at it in a while, but one that referenced, or questioned me as far as why I'm trying to place Black people in their own separate group. Why am I creating a Black atheist group? Why can't we just be all humans? And I'm like, well, I didn't start this shit. This has always been here before me, before anyone. When there were skeptical people and free thinkers and non-believers and atheists, these groups were already made organically, because experiences for many different ethnic groups, racial groups, and sexual orientation and marginalized people that are skeptics, their experiences are different. Their experiences are unique in their own way, and how we have to deal with that. Because I have not yet met a white person tell me that once they were a Christian and now an atheist, come to me and be like, oh, now I don't feel like I'm a white person anymore. Not one. But that is definitely profound for Black people. And I can only speak for Black people because I'm Black. I don't know what the experiences are for a Latini person that's an atheist. I don't know what that experience is for an Asian person that's an atheist, or anyone else. I can only talk about me. And I try my best to speak on the rest of my fam, like Bar and Mikey Famine and Blatheus and Cynthia and Maya and all of them that we know. Because, and Electric Live, I saw you. And the rest, because we have in some way, shape, or form had to deal or met with that. And then we have other unique experiences within that too. So I think knowing that, and even if you don't fully understand, even if you never fully understand, that's okay. I don't think you're ever supposed to, because you're not Black or you're not me. I think what's important is that you respect it. you respect that experience and know how different it is, and respect the need for more voices like us to come out of the woodwork and speak more about it and be powerful in it and work alongside us for it. That's all.
Well, I'm going to leave that. The only thing I'm going to say, I'm not even going to try to add on to that. That was brilliant. Thank you, Jenna. The only thing I'm going to add is we're getting ready to do this thing right here.
Woohoo!
In about a half an hour. So the link and everything is already up on YouTube. So you can join us there in about a half hour, and we're gonna party like it's 1949, and I don't even know how they partied in 1949. I'm sure RAO can tell us because he knows everything. He knows everything. But I'm just Josh and RAO settled down. No, Jenna, thank you. You said a bunch of amazing things tonight, and I appreciate it. And hopefully people go and share this to hear the video and hear Jenna, and just mute me out because it doesn't matter. But appreciate y'all, and thanks again, Jenna. And we will see you guys in 1/2 an hour to party with Shane the Skeptic.
Bitch Lola, oh, I'm a son. If you fucking with me, oh, and I'm
Who want the smoke? 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 Who want the want the smoke?
I hear shots coming on the low from hoes I'm hiding. This attention is so flattering cause they admiring. Don't know what's on their mind, but it should be retirement. If the AARP or this AR get the firing. Back, they don't want smoke with me. The diamonds is choking me. They pussy need puffery. These bitches is 0-3 and they in the lower league all in my ovaries. The fur on my shoulder mink. Tell me what hoe would think. I get the money. I am the king of New York and I rock and saw and weave. I run it, I relay the wig. They talking, I'm taking it in. I did not come here to make new friends. You burn the bridge and I'm making amends. They don't want none. I say it again. They don't want none. I pray for their sins.
Boxing in the whip.